We know that ETFs now exist. We had 3 days of volume. That was up until yesterday. We didn't today. Obviously, the market's still open. But overall, we had about 10 billion worth of volume. Now, to put things into perspective, 10 billion in volume is huge. If you take all the ETFs launched in 2023, you times it by 3, you get $10 billion. Okay, so just the 12 or 13 Bitcoin ETFs within 3 days alone had 3x the volume of all the ETFs launched in 2023. So that's fantastic. The volume is super high, way higher than people expected. Now, that is just volume though. Okay, volume could mean buying and selling. And unfortunately, a lot of that was due to selling from one specific company, Grayscale. At the very first day, it seemed like there weren't a lot of selling from Grayscale, but now after 3 days, close to 1.2 billion of Bitcoin was sold by Grayscale. It came out. That's why it's a big negative right there, right? Their volume exploded. But yeah, very, very bad. Now, to make up for it, you could see that BlackRock's now has 710 million. You got Fidelity 524, and then Bitwise and everyone else. So everyone's basically, their pile is growing. And it's growing faster than Grayscale. So overall, what does this mean? Well, it means that there's two things that this could mean. Number one is a lot of selling, and it's going into the other ETFs, which makes more sense because the other ETFs have way lower fees than Grayscale. And Grayscale, they obviously knew this was going to happen. That's why they put their fee at 1.5%. Everyone else is 0.2% because they knew there's not a whole lot of people that's going to be buying Grayscale's ETF. Everyone's going to be buying BlackRock and Fidelity's and ARK's and Bitwise's ETF. And number two, now this also could be very possible, is that a lot of the insiders that bought GBTC Trust early on, they couldn't cash out. They couldn't cash out. It was like one big trust where only Bitcoin could go in and you couldn't cash out until someone else bought it. But the problem is not a whole lot of people bought the trust when the premium was in a negative during crypto winter. That means if you sold it, you would have lost money instantly. So now a lot of those insiders are probably cashing out because now they finally have the ability to do so, right? So yeah, that's just a mass amount. Obviously, eventually, that's going to slow down and balance out. But if you look at the assets on the right side, Grayscale still holds about $25.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. That's a lot. But you know, someone like BlackRock, they have about 700 million, Fidelity 523 million, and so forth, right? They're all climbing by leaps and bounds. BlackRock is already a top 10 holder of Bitcoin. Fidelity and all these guys, they're all top 15, top 20, top 50 holders of Bitcoin, right? So they are rising up in a big way. So do I think that this is the cause for the weakness for Bitcoin? Maybe a little bit, but not really. Not really, because it's obvious that the others are making up for this. The inflows is still exceeding the outflows. So I don't think this is the main reason. But, you know, it's good to pay attention to, because if that starts outpacing the inflows, then we're going to have problems. Then we're going to have problems. Besides Grayscale, ETF, and all that stuff, right? We know that stablecoins still sky high. The market cap stablecoins still very, very high. In fact, USDT's market cap at a historical high. Now, why is this important? Well, because people are not just buying USDC for the fun of it. You're not going to USDT, I'm sorry. You're not going to make money by holding out USDT. It's not going to appreciate. It's going to stay at $1. So why is it climbing up? Well, it's climbing up because there are people, specifically whales, that's gearing up to spend it spend a lot of it. That's why they're converting their USD into USDT, because they want to get ready in case the parabolic bull run starts. They don't want to miss out. That's basically how you interpret that. Okay, no one is buying USDT because they're trying to profit from it. They're either taking profits or they're going to be buying by a boatload, right? And also, in terms of how Bitcoin is moving, despite where we are right now, actually, we're just going sideways, 42.7, right? Despite how we're moving right now, this is what it looks like when you zoom out. There will be sideways movement. There will be slow movement, but there's no doubt we're getting closer and closer to the halving event, and closer and closer and closer to the parabolic phase that we're all waiting for. It happens every single cycle like clockwork. We are basically exactly at the same point as we were the last cycle before we headed up to 64,000, and the cycle before that when we headed to 20,000, and the cycle before that when we headed to 1,000. This time around, it's going to be no different. The gains are a little bit less. I mean, previously, the first cycle, we saw 12,600% gain from the halving event, or 3 months before the halving, I'm sorry. The second cycle, 3 months before the halving event, to the top, 4,500%. This last cycle, 3 months before the halving till the top, 1,600. Let's just round up, 1,700%. And we're 3 months away from a halving event. So if we're measuring from now to the top and we go just 400%, not even 1,000%, not 500%, 400%, that will put us to like 200, 250,000. It's not unreasonable. When you throw out numbers like 200, 250,000, a lot of people just laugh at it. It's like, no way. There's no way we're going to go there. It's just way too high. There's not enough liquidity. It's not going to happen. But if you look at how high Bitcoin went previous times, even with the diminishing returns factored in, that's just how Bitcoin goes. That's just how it rolls. Bitcoin does not care about people's doubts. It just does what it does, right? Let's keep in mind, 3 months before the halving in 2020, okay, remember, that was that COVID crash. Bitcoin was below $4,000. And it went from $4,000 and eventually ended at $69,000, okay? Even at that point, when Bitcoin was at 4,000, people had a hard time believing it'll even climb back to 20,000. People were like, nah, it's 4,000. It's not going to go back to 20,000. It can't even break 10,000. What are you talking about, George? And I was saying, we're going to go way higher than 20,000, guys. Way higher. I thought 100,000. We came close, but not quite there because the Fed started raising rates. But we certainly broke 20,000. This time around, we'll certainly break 70,000. We will break 100,000 this cycle. And then things will get really nutty and really fun afterwards. So just wait for it. Just wait for it.